Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. This is Funny Like a Clown podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth, episode 80, October 6th, 2020. As always, Funny Like a Clown podcast brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce. For the spicy, sweet, savory taste at game time, there is only one G Vegas available at www.gvegas.webs.com. Go there, get it shipped to your house. Go green, go local. It's some good stuff for the game. On the phone, I have a comedian who's headlined over 15,000 shows in every single state in America. Started in New York and moved to L.A. Jimmy Della Valle, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing, Dennis? Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being on. And you, from what I've seen, you got to be like one of the hardest working guys in the business, which is what it takes to get you ahead. But we got to start somewhere. So take us back to the beginning. How did you get the bug to be in this business? What got you started in comedy?
Oh, I appreciate you saying hardest working comic. So many people say that to me, and I never realize how hard I actually do work. But I do, of course, focus 24 hours a day on things. So I started, so I was in Catholic school, and I got kicked out in the 5th grade.
Uh-oh.
And I had to go to public school. My mom and dad thought about getting a divorce. My dad, not so much. My mom's like, you learned how to swear from him, the F word and all these things, and I'm like, I learned from HBO, Ma. So that was the whole. So the whole thing was, it came down to being in Catholic school, and once I went to public school, I was still a bad kid. And what happened was the teacher, Mr. Alexander, he said to me, he goes, look, if you're good, at the end of the day, I'll let you tell a joke to all the students. So every day I got to do stand-up at the end of the day to the students.
How did that go for you?
And it was great, and I'd always get laughs, and they always look forward to it, and it was like every day, so it was like 360. We're not in school 365 days. Well, I was, because I was in summer school.
You were the bad kid, so you had to go extra, but it's addictive though. When you get your first laugh, you want more, right?
Oh yeah, that was definitely the thing. So then, so I'd always just wanted to be a stand-up comic, and I was like really good at sports. I was supposed to be like a New York Yankee, and I just didn't want to. I was like so good at like baseball that like I hated to practice. I didn't need to. Like I was that good. Like my batting average was 365. You know what I mean? Like I was really good at baseball.
So you could have had a baseball career instead of comedy if you wanted that.
Exactly. And what happened was I just didn't want to go to college. I turned down all the offers to college. I didn't want any of that.
Right.
And I didn't know if being a comic or whatever was going to work out. But I was like, I want to try it. And then all of a sudden, the guy comes sniffing around in high school, the military guy. And, the military is like, hey, you should join. So I'm hanging out with him.
Yeah.
And the sergeant, the drill, whatever is he, drill sergeant, the guy who finds you, the recruiter.
The recruiter, yeah.
And then I bang his wife.
Oh boy. He didn't want to recruit you after that, probably, right?
Yeah. So he is Sergeant Shallard was his name, and he was a black dude, and she was so hot, like insanely hot.
Couldn't say no.
And he like was, she was underappreciated by this guy.
Right.
So I'm like, not 19 yet. I'm turning 19, and then I just say, I go to the physical and I pass it with flying colors. Like he goes, man, he goes, you are so, amazing. Yeah. And I was like, I was going to be a Green Beret. Like that's what I kind of wanted to be. Not that I even
Rambo.
Yeah, if I don't even know if that's still even a thing anymore, right? But so then we sleep over in the hotel, me and the other guys, you know, and we party that night, and that morning we're all getting on the bus to go to boot camp, and he says, hey, Jimmy, you're gonna, I'm so sorry, man. He's like, your test came back. Your ASVAB was one of the worst scores we've ever had. So I wasn't a good test taker. I barely got out of high school. So I knew going to college is,
not a good choice,
baseball,
right?
I was not going to be, you know what I mean? I was going to struggle.
Not a book student, right.
No, not book smart, street smart.
Comedy's a good career if you're not book smart. That's the route you go. Go for the laughs.
You know, and then sure enough, a week later, after I was no longer going in, I was on stage as a comic at this place called the Other Side Comedy Club. And one side was a strip joint, the other side was a comedy club.
So what made you go? What made you give the itch to go there and try, though?
So I was banging. I was a real handsome dude.
You're banging everybody, wow.
Yeah, but I was a handsome kid. You know what I mean? Like I was a model at JCPenney when I was like 14. You know what I mean? Like I was.
So you could get the gals if you wanted. It wasn't a problem.
Yeah, no problem. And I went to go see the stripper that was working on the other side, and she's like, baby, you should go do comedy next door. I go, I don't know, man. And they had a comedian that night, and she was hot, so she was just telling the guy, he was the owner of the strip club as well as the comedy, and she goes, let him go up and do a couple minutes, and so I went up and got some laughs and got off, and it was like in a regular show, like it was like a guest set,
right?
And the guy gave me like $50. He didn't have to give me anything.
Wow, first time up, he gave you $50?
Yeah, he gives me like $50.
Damn.
And then he said, hey, you should come around. Then anyways, within a few months, I was there, so I was performing there every week. And then within a few months, it closed.
Oh.
Strip joint got, there was other stuff going on, whatever. So it got closed, the strip joint, the comedy club. So then I went to the local comedy club, to Wise Guys Comedy Club.
The next level.
Yeah. Bruno Shrippa and Ralph Harris was the headliner that night. And he's a legend out of Philly, if you know who he is, and black comic. And it was Ralph Harris, and they had an amateur night, but then he would headline at the end of the night.
Right, a lot of those, yeah.
Yeah, so they would bring comedians on, and so there was like, I think 12 or 14 of us, amateur open micers or whatever, and I did the stuff, and then I did my thing. I got laughs, and
did you think you were better or worse than the other comics, or what was your opinion of yourself?
So I got consistent laughs, but I was the guy who I couldn't look at the audience. I put my head down. I used to wear like a baseball hat and the jeans and sneakers and a button-up shirt and a tie, and I would. And I did jokes about wearing the hat, because I had real nice hair, but why would I wear the hat? Because I got a bad haircut, just all stupid stuff. And and I was young, and so doing these jokes, and I would talk about my hair. I had a coupon at Supercuts, buy one, get one free. This is the free one. They'd laugh. I'm 19, you know what I mean? Right. It's like, and then I go, this is the free one. Now I look like Bud Bundy from Married with Children. And at that point, I did. So that was like, boom, boom, laughs.
Yeah.
They started, I started coming back. And do you remember Frank Del Pizzo, the comedian?
I've heard of him, yeah, way back there.
Yeah, so Frank's in Florida, great guy. He was a headliner then. And Frank went on to, they were doing like a seminar or whatever, so let's say he's headlining for the week, and then Saturday afternoon he's doing like a seminar.
Yeah.
So he takes, and you do your set in front of Frank, You're only doing 5 minutes. And he rips you apart.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Rips you apart like you can't imagine.
It's a tough business. You're going to get that a lot. Yeah, it's not an easy business, comedy, by no means.
No. Calls you fucking hack, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awful. And some people just quit. They didn't want to, do comedy.
A lot of people can't take it. Yeah, I've seen a lot of comics quit because they can't take the toughness of the business. Yeah.
Yeah. So then within 3 months of taking his tough love, I was a working pro. The headliners that came through the club would then say, hey, man, why don't you come do a month with me in Florida? Why don't you come do this and that? And back then...
So it toughened you up. It paid off for you, then, him being tough with you, right?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I don't even know if Frankie even remembers it, because Frank opens for me now.
Oh, gee, there's a twist for you. That's got to make you feel good, though, right?
And he's a great comic, and but he's pretty much kind of like a retired comic. He's in Florida now, but I remember I went to go do the Comedy Works in Saratoga, and I was doing a whole week, and this was like a couple of years ago, and then I go, hey, to the owner Tommy, I go, who's opening featuring for me? I didn't see him. He was like, he goes, I got Frank Del Pizzo coming in. And I go, oh, great. And then Frank was no ego, because he had already featured for me other places, and he knew I was a beast. So
he knew what he was getting into, okay.
Yeah, so he knew I was from. But I don't think he remembers, like, when he was younger, of where because it was only the one time.
It becomes a blur after a while. Once you did so many shows, it becomes a big blur in your mind. Where you've been, what you've done, it's tough.
Oh, man. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, so anyway, so I did stand-up, and then I'm in New York City with Rich Voss, Patrice O'Neill, and the rest of the guys every night. And I'm doing about 20 to 30 shows a week. And Rich Voss took me under his wing and really liked me. And then in 2004, fast forward to I'd already did a ton of commercials. I just did Sopranos, all these different things. And I said, I'm moving. And then Patrice O'Neill was like, he's like, you'll be back. He goes, you're not out. LA's not for you. Well,
good point. I've seen a lot of comedians tuck tail when they get out. Because I'm a Boston guy. When you start in Boston, they say it's a good place to get ready. But if you're going to go for it in comedy, you got to go to either New York or LA. And a lot of comics from Boston, they get kicked around up there and they come back tucking tail, like you said. So what's it like going to the next level?
So that's the funny thing is, I opened the casino, the Mohegan Sun Casino. I did the first comedy show ever at the Mohegan Sun.
In Connecticut.
I was the headliner. And I used to live up there because I was a crap stealer.
Really?
I had quit stand-up for a few years, and I was working there. And so I redeveloped everything as like an opener feature in Boston. With Vinny Favorito made me a regular at Nick's when I was young, and Kevin Knox was my good friend, and Al March, Johnny Turco, so PJ Thibodeau, Fish.
Boston legends right there.
So we were all coming up together, Fish and PJ Thibodeau.
Now, were you doing odd jobs beside this, or were you a working comic that's all you had to do was comedy at that point?
So I only had to do comedy, but I was a degenerate gambler.
Uh-huh.
So that's why I had to get a job in the casino. So I was making like $70 grand a year at the casino, plus bonuses for the Native Americans, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I'm going between every Friday, Saturday. I've got Friday, Saturdays off, and I work days.
You're giving a lot of the money back at the tables, right?
Yeah, so when you work in a casino, you can go 10 in the morning. If you work the 10 o'clock shift, 10 to 6. But you could say, you can get there and sign this thing called the early out. So I'd get out about 2 or 3 every day. Boom, I'd head to Boston. And I was playing the Comedy Connection, Faneuil Hall. I played Providence Comedy Connection all the time. I mean, I used to have several different pictures of it there.
Right.
In fact, the last lady that was booking it was, I had moved to LA and I made a call. I said, yeah, I'd love to play your place. She's like, well, I don't know who you are. You need to send a, and I said, what? I said, what, you in your office? Why don't you look at my picture I know is in your office? Then I know there's another picture over there. And then I pretty much told her to go F herself.
That's it.
Because I said, I don't jump through fucking hoops for nobody. I got a million credits, you know, and
you worked your way, you don't have to anymore, but...
Yeah.
What was it like making the jump from New York to LA, though? I mean, going to the other side of the country, that had to be, you had to think twice about that. I mean, how hard of a move was that for you?
So my wife, born and bred in New York City and Brooklyn, did not want to leave New York, and I was like, I'd always told her in the back of my mind, I said, look, we're dating. I said, LA is probably where I got to go because I booked so much acting work. And she's like, and at that point, there wasn't a sitcom in New York City.
Right.
They didn't have a sitcom. They didn't tape sitcoms. Gaffigan had just got that show, Welcome to New York, and it got canceled.
Yeah.
That was the closest sitcom you had. And everything was in LA.
Everything's LA, right, yeah.
So then we got married. We did 3 weeks honeymoon. And my manager says, I'm flying you to LA. You're going to do stand-up. And you're going to do two acting scenes in the theater. And then I got off stage, and they had folders with my name and picture, and you know, for showcases, and all the agents were like, I really want to rep you. So I took meetings, and I went back home, and I told my wife, I said, we're moving to LA. And within the month, I moved to LA.
Now, how was the acting bug for you? Is that the same bug as comedy? Did you love doing that as much? Was it addictive for you, or?
So acting was tough, man. I couldn't remember lines and stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was dating my wife, she'd watch me work on stuff, and she goes, "You can't remember one line." She goes, "One sentence. You're stutter. You're not." So then I just, you know, continued acting classes, and it taught me how to enunciate and all this shit, and kind of get away from the New York accent if I needed to, or whatever, or use it. And then all of a sudden, so I booked the first thing I ever auditioned for, which was a commercial, which there's no doubt in my mind you saw living in Boston. It was a Fleet Bank commercial. It was huge. It was at Yankee Stadium, and it played, and there was a souvenir guy, hot dog guy, yeah, and that thing paid $50,000 for that run, and then it ran for 4 more years.
We're Red Sox guys around here in Boston, so when we saw the Yankees commercial, we're probably like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I know. But it played at Fleet Bank, and it was like,
right.
You know, I knew.
But I mean, that's a stepping stone to lead you to bigger things. I mean, you did the bank commercial, and I mean, you went on, I see, you know, Conan O'Brien you've been on, The Sopranos, Lethal Weapon. I mean, was there a favorite thing that led you to the next level, or?
Yeah, so, I mean, the goal always is series regular, right? Series regular on a hit show. You know, you get
right.
2.5
regular work.
You know, something like that. So, when I came out here and I really learned how to act, I was booking things left and right. And I've been here 17 years, almost 17 years. And all of a sudden I went and I got an offer to start doing cruise ships. And I was like, man, that's where comedians go to die. I don't know what's up. And
it's good pay, but yeah, it's kind of...
Yeah. So, and then my agent goes, no. He goes, it's not where they go to die. He goes, it used to be. He goes, but now it's a big deal to get booked on cruises.
Yeah, the younger kids are going. I mean, back our parents went, it was elderly people that went, but I mean, it's not just elderly anymore. It's a lot of young kids do cruises now, sure.
Oh, no, man. So then I'm on the cruises, and I find out all my good friends, top guys. My buddy who was a cast member of Saturday Night Live, Dean Edwards, was doing cruises.
All doing it, yeah.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Dean Edwards was doing cruises. And a whole bunch of different, and then Joey Yannetti, who's a Boston guy who I used to open for back in the day, but he doesn't remember me because he got cancer, and we had talked about that whole thing.
Yeah.
But that was when I would go back up with Dick Doherty, and I did all those shows, and then we went to the Portland, Maine Comedy Connection, where I met Butch Bradley, who's my really good friend to this day. Butch Bradley, George Hamm, those guys were all, I don't know if you're in those comedy circuits.
Joe Yannetti, it was a tough thing that he went through. I know that with the cancer there, but I mean, he was flying all over the place for a while doing stuff.
Yeah. So we had the same agent for cruises, me and Joey.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, there's some great comics out here. And then Robbie Prince, these are all guys that were great comics out of Boston who were doing ships. One of my best friends, Dwayne Perkins. So you know what I mean? Like all these different guys who were doing ships. And I was like, okay, all right, so that's what's going on. So I went out there, and then they said, how many sets can you do? And I said, well, I got hours of material. And they said, well, how much clean can you do? And I go, oh, man.
Right, because they got two shifts, right? Like, you got to do a day show and a night show, and the day show is clean and the night show is dirty, right? So you got to be able to work both ways.
No, so I signed exclusively with Carnival. So I started at 3 different 30 to 35-minute headline shows. And then you can repeat 2 of the shows. So if you do a clean one, you can repeat it later the next day. Or, but my show started at like 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and they went till like 11:30 usually was the last one. So sometimes you do 3. One day the other comic didn't show up. I had to do 5 shows in one day.
So how long are you on the boat for when you're doing these? How long you do the whole cruise, or?
So with Carnival, that was the nice thing about this. COVID really fucked everything.
Yeah, that messed up everything.
Carnival was great, bro. I could do 3 cruises in 11 days.
So you're getting to see a lot of places too while you're doing this, right?
Yeah. They fly you. They pay for everything. Working for Carnival's great. Some comics have knocked it, but the thing is, a lot of comics couldn't. They couldn't hack it. They couldn't deal with it because they didn't have the material.
Yeah.
So let's say a comic's got 45 or an hour. That's all they got. And then Carnival says, hey, can you do 2 clean shows? I'm going to send you to Alaska. We need you to do 2, 30-minute clean shows. I know you already have 2, but you have 2 more in you. And then you get extra money sometimes. So the way it works for Carnival is you get paid. It's called per gig. Every 5 shows, you get paid.
So now, can you do the same set over, or they want different material?
Yeah. So after I've done it for the last 5 years, before COVID, I got off the ship March 1st. They were still They were starting to quarantine people at that point.
Right.
And I got off the ship March 1st. I was coming off for 2 days. I was going back on another ship here in LA, which is like 45 minutes away from me, so I can just take an Uber. And then they canceled all the ships, and what happened.
So what have you been doing since then? I mean, the clubs are down, the cruises are down, everything's down. I mean, you're a working comic. This is your world.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you doing to survive since then?
Yeah, so as I've been doing the joke, I said, I did 300 to 400 shows a year, and now I perform for kittens. My cats, and one of them is not a fan. So that's it. So.
Well, is the acting thing still going on, or is that industry shut down too out there?
Yeah, no, so it's still going on.
Okay.
I just shot a pilot in May that got picked up, and then I'm the star of it, and we're shooting it for Hulu probably at the end of this year or early 2021. But it's all, COVID protocols.
What's the name of that so people can look for it?
It's called Single Broke Dad. It's
Single
already
Broke.
on IMDb.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, it's about a guy who's rich and loses everything, and he's got to live with his Latina wife
Okay.
and kid. So it's like, so my friend is a series regular on the Goldbergs. So now, the other day, he has to get tested, I think every 2 or 3 days. He has to take a COVID test.
No.
And then he has to wear a mask, a shield, go into his trailer, and do whatever, and then there's one person in the makeup room. If he needs a coffee or water, he has to say, hey, I need a coffee, and then someone runs one over.
Right.
Like, there's no more craft services where you go up and just graze and eat.
Eat what you want, right? Yeah.
Eat whatever you want. So all that's all gone for now.
It's a new world, yeah. Everything's changing for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. The comedian Brian Glowicki, he's a Boston guy, right? He did a podcast with me the other day. We were on. Do you know him?
I don't know Brian. No, don't sound familiar.
Yeah, funny comic,
Guy?
good guy. He's working, so he's been doing shows. Like, I think they did the Comedy Connection Providence the other day, and but so they've been offering these shows outside, levity entertainment.
They don't laugh anymore. They beep their horn at you when you're doing outside shows. I found that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that, right?
It's a different scene. Yeah.
You got to bring, and if you're smart, you bring your own mic. They switch the mic so no one's touching your mic.
Right.
People are spinning. I mean, because I'll tell you, sometimes a mic goes in my mouth when I'm talking, or I hit my teeth or my lips.
I did a show like that. They didn't change the mic, and I did. I bumped it by a second, and that was all I was thinking about the rest of my set. I'm like, did my lips just touch that damn mic? It is scary, yeah.
Exactly, right? It's scary. So that's where we're at. I mean, I do a lot of voiceovers. So I have a nice voiceover booth in my home where my agent in Chicago, my LA, my New York, I have one in Denver.
So you still got some things you can work on, right? You're not totally shut down. You still got some work you can do, right?
No, so it's been nice because I can just go into my booth in my underwear, just like a Zoom,
right?
And sometimes I'll have 5 to 10 auditions in like 2 days on voiceovers, and the agent will say, oh, hey, you booked 2 of them. And, they pay well. They pay thousands of dollars per gig.
Right. You still got bills to pay. I mean, that's,
Yeah, you can't, and there's unemployment of store. I don't know how it is in New England, but the unemployment, and it's just, I think my unemployment runs out in November.
Yeah.
But I've been playing the stocks. I bought a lot of shares of Tesla.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to figure out, like, it was funny, I'm buying a home, I'm buying a new house, and I told my wife, I said, listen, I'm never going to work a day job. If COVID's here for the rest of our life, I'm never working. I've been a comedian 30 years. I mean,
what are you going to do, right? That's what you're trained for.
I don't have, she's always made fun of me. She's like, you don't have a resume. She goes, you just have special skills.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You can't do a regular job once you've done that for a while, I mean.
Yeah, and that's, listen, I go from making 6 figures a year to having, you live off your savings, but at least I've been booking voiceovers, and I booked that other pilot, and we shoot those. So I'll survive, but I don't know about going back out doing stand-up full, you know. Look,
Yeah, we can only hope it gets better. I mean, that's the big unknown. We don't know how it's going to turn out, do we? We don't know if or when we're going to be back.
How are you guys out there? Are you guys wearing masks and shit?
Yeah, it's like you said. Everything now, it's outdoor shows now. I mean, there's a lot of the outdoor shows going on. We can get away with that. Where I'm in Massachusetts, we're like pretty locked down. You can't do much. But if you go right over to the border to New Hampshire, their laws ain't too bad. So if you skip up to New Hampshire, they can have up to 50% inside as long as they're spaced out. So, you know, you can go right over the line to the next state and get some work. Where, you know, Mass, we're still pretty buttoned down here. They won't let us do much.
What part of Massachusetts are you?
I'm out in Central Mass.
Okay, yeah.
But I mean, the governor's got the whole state down. I mean, they got, you know, they got a big tent. Lenny Clark giggles up in Boston. They got a big tent in the parking lot. That's like the big one that, you know, but you can only have up to 50 people. So I mean, how much money are you making anyway? If you can only, whole idea is to pack the place. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah,
so
you know, that's what I said. I had some clubs call me, and I go, look, I normally get 2,500 or 3,000 a weekend.
Not anymore.
I said, if you're selling out shows, 250 to 275, 300 people normally, and I'm doing 5 or 6 shows, you're making money. You're making money on me, on the door, and you're only paying me 25. I said, what are you going to pay me when you can only go 40 to 70 people?
Yeah, you're not getting as much, but I mean, it's better than nothing is the other side of it, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm supposed to do, earlier during this, I did the thing. They're doing a comedy tour of all Italian comedians, and I'm supposed to be on it. And we're supposed to do theaters. But I saw the guy post the other day about a theater he had did. He's like, oh, it's so great to be back. And I'm looking, and I'm going, oh my God, this theater is like not even a quarter full.
Right.
And it's all socially distanced, and it looks awful.
And in comedy, you want the crowd right on top of you, so it's different when they're all spaced out, you know? Laughter don't travel as easy, so it's...
No, it's awful.
It's a different game, yeah.
What's happening? I just don't... I don't know what's going to happen, you know? And then
we'll see what happens, right?
The president, and he wears the mask. He doesn't wear the mask. I'm scared to death to catch it, and this fucking guy catches it, and he's better in 3 days.
Yeah. Who knows what the truth is? Everybody's got the conspiracy theory. Well, speaking of conspiracy theories, can you end one for me? Because you've been on both America's Got Talent and Last Comic Standing in 2004, I believe you were on. Now, Last Comic Standing, is that on the up and up? Because a lot of comics around here say they just have people stand in line just, you know, to show that footage leading into the show. If you want to get on the actual show, you need an agent. So what was it like for you getting on that?
Okay, so Barry Katz owned it, right?
Yep.
He ran it. Barry Katz is from Boston, who was a bit of a, you know, a shady hustler.
Welcome to the business.
You know, shady hustler who managed, I think, Jay Moore.
Yeah, it's a shady business, yeah.
Yeah, all those guys. And he starts this show, and he says, so anyone that was his client, it was nepotism, and they all were going to make it into the house, or, you know what I mean, whatever the deal was. So my thing was very short-lived. I was not with Barry. I did not sign with Barry as management. I was with a different manager.
So you didn't have to stand in those long lines to get seen, though, right?
Well, you're going to laugh.
All right.
The first time I was at the comic strip in New York City, and my manager got me, like, you know, like I just show up, like, let's say it's 10 a.m., and it's, you know, it's like I have an appointment at 11:10. So then they just take my info and they tell me just go stand in line, and I'm in within, you know, 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Like that's how they had it. So let's say you're standing in line, and all of a sudden I come right and stand right in front of you, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know, like,
who the hell are you, man? What's going on here?
Right? So the other guy that's in front of me, who's my buddy to this day, is Matt Iceman.
Okay.
You know, American Ninja Warrior. He's the host.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
well, okay.
He's the host of American Ninja Warrior. So I think they show a little bit. See, like when you do Last Comic Standing, it's different. You get like, you do good, and then they say, oh, we'd like to see it at night in front of an audience. So then that's what happens, and then that's as far as I got.
Right.
You know, like now, I'd get on the show, no problem. I'd slide right through. But back then, it was different. You know, it was I hadn't really found my voice. I was still working, but I hadn't found my voice.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have what...
There's a lot of politics involved in comedy anyway, right? I mean...
Yeah.
Being funny will take you so far, but there's a lot of politics and business side to it, too.
But America's Got Talent, I got 3 standing ovations, and the warm-up guy comes up to me, and he goes, dude, no, comics never get standing. He goes, this is fucking amazing. He's like, you're going to go far. So then, but I was in a comedy team. I had another guy with me, and we were like, you know, like a Martin and Lewis, Cheech and Chong, whatever. And they loved us. And they were making the deal of you're going to go into the semifinals. They tell you, the producer lets you know, and then they're going to do like a 5 or 10 minute video of me in New York eating pizza, breaking balls with my friends, whatever.
Yeah.
It shows who I am. And then I hated the guy that I worked with. That was my comedy team guy. That I ended up just quitting the show.
Oh.
So I never got kicked off.
Wow, you walked off America's Got Talent, really?
Yes,
wow.
Yeah. So I walked off America's Got Talent. It was such awful, like, for my health.
Yeah.
Being partners with this guy, I wanted to kill him. I told the producers, I said, if I go further, I said, I might kill this guy.
Not good for your mental health. That's important too, man.
Oh, dude, it was awful. And he was an awful dude. And actually, there's a movie called Opening Act that's coming out.
Right.
With Vince Vaughn produced. And it's coming out in the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And the character that I played on stage in the comedy team, they're actually making fun of it because the guy was such an idiot that was my partner. Nobody wanted to stay with him as a partner. So after me, he had about, I think, 17 to 23 partners, and it never worked out.
Nobody wanted to work with him, huh?
Yeah,
well, part of comedy's having fun. If you're not having fun, then it's not worth it anyway. That's the business. It's a fun business,
Yeah, well, I did a lot of research. Like, the Eagles hated each other. I just started realizing, like, you know what? It's not worth it. Mental health. This is
if it gets to you, it's not.
So I went back, and at that point, I was managed by the Improvs. I was with Power Entertainment, and then but we were opening for Russell Peters. So I'd open for Russell Peters sometimes, and then we'd open with the comedy team. And we were going to sign with Russell's agent, and it just, everything. We were going to get our own show in Vegas, and we actually did get our own show in Vegas, but that little shady piece of shit, he went behind my back, went to Vegas, dropped my name, and got his own show, and it was called the Meatballs of Comedy. And then people hated him so much in Vegas. He signed a deal for 6 months. He was kicked out within 2 weeks to a month. And
that's the tough part of comedy, ain't it? Someone's always trying to take your job. There's always some young kid trying to take your job behind you, man.
Yeah. So in 2 weeks to a month, they called me and said, hey, did you create the Meatballs of Comedy? Because that's what people are saying. I said, yeah. They said, well, we got Joey out here. I said, but we're going to go. I said, we don't want anything to do with him. He's an awful person. I said, yeah, that's why I left America's Got Talent. And the guy laughed, and he gave me a deal. His name was Joe Sanfilippo of Bonkers Comedy Club. Have you ever heard of Bonkers out of Florida?
Yeah, I've heard of Bonkers, yeah.
The big chain. And he said, he goes, I'll bring you out here. I'll pay you this much. and I had a show for 2 years in Vegas called the Guidos of Comedy, and but I was just doing I was just doing comedy solo with other acts coming up, like that was, and then so pretty much at before COVID, I was just
on fire.
Yeah, I was doing good, man. I was doing good with stand-up, with ships, acting,
everything.
And then in Vegas. I performed if I wasn't on a ship, I was in Vegas.
Well, let's talk about another thing you've been doing good at. If people want to check it out, they can go to Amazon Prime, and they can check out the Not For Nothing TV series that you're on. And I guess I'll read the synopsis for the listeners, and you can tell us what it's all about. Not For Nothing, an original scripted comedy about 3 blue-collar best friend comedian actors at different stages in their Hollywood careers while navigating the daily LA grind for meetings, aka lunch. They discuss their relationships, auditions, and the crazy odd jobs they do to keep the dream alive. They question the choices they've made in the highly competitive entertainment business. So what can you tell us about the series?
Yeah, so Not For Nothing, I created with comedian Tim Homion and Keith Ross Nelson, and they both star in it with me. I mean, I'm the star. I'm like the Raymond, or I'm the Seinfeld of the show. You know what I mean? Then we got our side characters. Not that they're not side characters, but they're just I'm the main guy. So my wife, it's me and my wife and my cat, and it's a whole thing. But then it's also about the mafia, and it's about the comedy clubs and the shady stuff that happens in the comedy clubs, about the young, the girls, like you got the hashtag Me Too type shit now. Like you got the girl who's wants to be a comedian, and you got the manager or network guy going, "Oh, it's real easy, no problem." And then you see him getting a blowjob.
Right. There's a price to be paid, right? I'll make you a star, sure.
Yeah, so.
But that's real life stuff too. So this is all your real life experiences you're drawing on, right?
But the guy who plays my dad is the legendary Bobby Costanzo, who plays Joey's dad on Friends, and if you look up Bobby Costanzo, he's been in 400 things.
Right.
And, our chemistry was just amazing together, and so right before COVID, I signed a deal for 2 more seasons. Which were going to be 30-minute episodes. It's and it has right now the series that's on has 5-star reviews, but it was going to be 30-minute episodes, and it was going to be a dramedy. It was actually a bit of a rehash and a more darker version of the show, so more of a dramedy. Okay. And networks were really excited. So I probably in 2021. Mid to late, I wouldn't even start probably shooting it till then. That's
really?
What I feel that's happening.
You gotta hope your watching base is still with you by that point,
Exactly. Yeah, it becomes but then I do have my other movie. It's on Amazon Prime called The Cross Up.
Well, you won Best Actor, correct?
I won Best Actor.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. You're very excited about that at all the film festivals. I won Best Actor because the guy who directed it was Eddie Velez. Eddie Velez was in the A-Team back in the day. He was Frankie Santana. He would come and rescue those guys when they would get caught or whatever. And he was in White Chicks. He's in Traffic. I mean, he's a legend, Puerto Rican actor from New York. And he came up with Damon Wayans or Keenan Ivory Wayans. He was roommates with him, and he taught me how to direct, produce, write, all these things. He's like my big brother.
The Godfather.
And he directed me in this. And the final take, which is one of the funniest scenes in the movie, we did it one. I nailed it in one take, and he goes, "Cut! Oh, that's amazing." And then he brings a writer in who was actually one of my best friends. This guy, Jerry Houck, who's an amazing actor. He's been on Ballers, every TV show. And Jerry is like in his 60s. And he writes the movie, and he goes, He goes, I love what Jimmy did. He goes, but let's try something else. But the thing was, they were mad at the DP, the camera guy, and I didn't know. So
you're in the middle of something you don't know about.
All of a sudden, I do 42 takes. The camera guy, this is the last shot of the show.
That's the tough part of acting, isn't it? You know, you want to be a team player, but it's like, do it again, do it again, do it again. Take this day, retake. It's a pain in the ass, it is.
Well, yeah, you know, it's funny because my wife is in Not For Nothing. She plays the casting director. You really can't see her. You can just hear her. It's like you're going through like a tough audition, so it's, you know, real funny, and she's breaking your balls, and you know, she nails it. She's so talented, and she nails it. And he goes, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna shoot it this way. We're gonna do that. She's like, and my wife's like, what the fuck? She's like, you got it.
Yeah. Enough, I'm fucking ready. Enough, man. You're driving me. But you want to be a team player, too. You don't really want to say that. That's what you're feeling. Sometimes you do say it, but you don't always have the balls to say it, you know?
Exactly. I mean, she's not an actress. She's just a talented, natural person, you know? But she's so funny. And it's like, any comedian woman meets her, and they're like, how are you not a comedian? They go, you're funnier than me. Right. These are like major headlines.
Some people are just naturally funny. Yeah, they don't even realize it. They don't naturally. You know?
It's funny. She has a job out here and a big company, and they've been Zooming. She got the job right when COVID hit, so it actually worked out good. And she's like, they're so funny. And I was talking to some of her workers or coworkers the other day. They go, I know you're the comedian, but oh my God, I've never they go, the one girl's like, I peed my pants at work the other day laughing. I go, try being married to her. I go, it's insane how funny she is.
Do you get any material from her, just watching her around the house, or?
Oh, completely. So one of my famous lines from my comedy special on Dry Bar, it's called Famous Nobody, right? So if people want to look up my special, and that's a clean take of me. That's a clean comedy special because that's what they're about. They actually shot it in Utah for more.
You go a lot further in this business working clean, too. You know that, right?
Oh, of course. And one of the famous lines is like, I said to my wife, I said, hey, my wife's my best friend. And then I said, you know what? I realized the other day she's not my best friend. I thought she was, because my best friend Vinny in Brooklyn would take a bullet for me. I go, would you take a bullet for me? And she goes, no, but I would shoot you. Right? So that's like her thing. And then it's like, the other line is like, we're going to be together forever because we're a team. And she goes, I want to be traded.
Oh, boy. So, off the team, right? Well, you mentioned your Dry Bar comedy special, just so the listeners know. It's called Famous Nobody, and it's got over 5 million views. I mean, how does that make you feel that you got 5 million views? And just so you know, there's 7 billion people in the world, so 5 million ain't bad. How does that make you feel?
So it makes me feel really good because there's algorithms of how they post things up and make things. So the thing that makes me feel good is because the new specials that have been coming out they're only getting a few 100,000.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a different thing. There is one thing that I did that got over 50 million views, which is very famous. I remember, do you remember, PJ Thibodeau?
Yeah. He's down in Florida now. He retired down there, yeah.
Oh, he did go to Florida?
Yeah,
I thought he was still in Boston.
No, he did here for a while. He finally retired, went down there, yeah.
Naugatuck. So PJ messages me out of the blue. I hadn't seen him in a million years. It's like, dude, I just saw your video, and someone was going, oh my God, funniest video I've ever seen. And then he goes, oh my God, that's Jimmy D. Now, did you ever see No Witness News? I'm the star of No Witness News.
No Witness News. That one's got like over 100 million views too, right?
Yeah, well, that's got so many worldwide views, you can't keep track.
Right.
Because No Witness News is if Italians ran the news. And Damon Wayans Jr., the son, who's a big star, he produced it. And the director was the guy who directed A Haunted House and all those Marlon Wayans movies.
Right.
And that thing, I tell you, that thing will start circulating, and all of a sudden I'll just have my Facebook or social media will be packed because it'll start recirculating.
Right, it lights back up again, right.
I mean, it's been going for about 4 or 5 years, but it was, you know, I really wanted to do a big comedy tour when it came out because I was like, dude, we've got millions and millions of views.
Yeah, called The Famous Nobody, again for the listeners, and it's available on Amazon Prime, and
Oh, yeah. No, it's on Drybar yeah, they can just go to Drybar with the app for Famous Nobody.
Then go to your website. Yeah. Go ahead and plug your website, so if they want to check you out, they'll know where to go.
Oh, yeah, perfect. So you can go to funnyjimmy.com, FUNNYJIMMY.com, or Jimmy Della Valle. I don't know if how he links it up, but it's JIMMY DELLAV as in Victor ALLE.com.
Okay.
And you can also probably put in Brooklyn Buddha because I'm known as the Brooklyn Buddha. So a lot of those.
You used to have a podcast named that, didn't you? Your own podcast named that?
Yeah. So I did about 68 episodes of the podcast, and I guess you probably do it yourself, but I had different producers, and they all got flaky. You know, it's like Joey Diaz, right? He's got What Church, What's Happening Now. He's a good friend. And Joey had this kid, Leland, who was running it for him. And I was like, man, I need a Leland to run my podcast. Because anyone that came on my podcast loved it. They loved it. And like guys would give me like a hard out. They go, man, I can only do 40 minutes. And then they're doing 90 minutes or 2 hours. I'm like, yo, at 40 minutes, I'm like, all right, man, we got to wrap this up. Because, you know, Joe's got to get going. He's like, no, I'm good, dude.
Well, even Joe Rogan's got one of the biggest podcasts ever, and he says, don't ever give somebody part of your podcast. Whatever you do, keep it yourself, you know? You don't want to, well, he's with Spotify now. He sold out a little bit, but he still got control of the show. He didn't give this, that's where you listen to it, but he still controls it, so.
Yeah, and I mean, and you run yourself. Yours is just, you run it through like a Zoom.
I run it through the computer myself, right? I got control of the whole thing, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, and you have a great one. The Funny Like a Clown, I mean, that's the Joe Pesci? Is that what that's about?
Yeah, it was just a line from the Joe Pesci thing, but I mean, I look at my stats, and I love the people, thank you for tuning in, but 5% of my listening base is in Israel, and it's like, I don't know who's tuning me in Israel, but thank you very much. I appreciate you guys tuning me in. I just want to say that.
That's great. That's the 5% in Israel. It's because they're saving money by tuning in.
I guess so. I got somewhere to run if things go bad. I can go to Israel. But let's go back to the cross up. I'll read the synopsis. You mentioned that earlier. Sammy the Sinner Faustino has been taking his faithful wife for granted when he is abruptly and mercilessly enlightened by some friends in high places. The cross up is a fast-moving, funny story with unexpected twists and turns. And how did you get involved with that? Was this your idea or an idea you were brought in on, or?
So, as I said, Jerry Houck is one of my best friends. If you look up Jerry Houck, Hauck, he's been in a million TV shows and movies for years. And we were going to lunch, and we were in the car, and he was making fun. We drove by a church, and he crossed himself. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, my freaking wife crosses herself at every church. And then, and I go, really? He goes, yeah, my wife does it like at one church, but not every church we drive by. He goes, it's insane. He goes, it's like so we start talking about it. We start breaking balls, and we're laughing and laughing. We go to lunch, and then that night he calls me up and he goes, hey man, I just wrote a script idea for my wife crossing herself. So we start going through the whole thing. We kind of tighten up the script a little bit, and then he goes, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want you to star in this, and I want you to da-da-da. So we get the thing, and then we get some money to do it, and we went through a couple different editors, because editors, they say they can do things, and then they're flaky, they're not good enough, and then Eddie Velez, like I said, your fans can look him up. He's been in hundreds of things. Eddie's amazing.
Google it.
Eddie, he is so meticulous. So Eddie had sent after we shot it, and he's like, here's a copy with the edit, and then like we finally finalized it after like a week, and then he's like, oh no, I got another change. So we go through all these different changes, and it was like, oh my God. But the thing is, having Jerry and Eddie, if I didn't have those guys, and I ended up being the executive producer as well, and star, if I didn't have those guys, it wouldn't be as good. It's like, I know I can act my ass off, but having Eddie, who's worked under Steven Soderbergh so many
makes
times,
you better, right?
Traffic, it made me so much better. It took me to a new level where we're doing a movie called Handyman. It's a trilogy. I was going to say it's a trilogy where I'm starring in it. Michael Madsen was supposed to do it, and now Eddie's directing it, and Eddie wants me to do it. He's like, you're gonna be amazing in this.
That's good when people push you, right? I mean, if somebody, even in comedy, if somebody's having a good set, you're thinking, I better bring my A game. I don't want them outdoing me. Or somebody's out acting you, you want them to push you. It just makes you better.
Well, like a Dane Cook, right? I don't really know Dane well, but I know all his buddies, and my buddy Al Del Benny, who's amazing. He's out of Boston. He's like a legend out of Boston, actually. He lives in Australia now. And there's a famous story called Al and the Monkeys. And that's my buddy Al.
Uh-huh.
And I think Bobby Kelly was in it, and Dane, and I forget the other guy. They were like a improv sketch team. And when Dane was bringing guys on tour, if you ever went to go see Dane at the, what do you guys call, is it called the Garden?
Yeah, the TD Garden, yeah.
Yeah, and he would have those guys open for him, and those guys would murder in front of Dane.
Yeah.
And some comics don't want their opener to be murder. They want just to do okay.
Oh, yeah. They want to be the star. They don't want him stealing the show from them. No way.
But I want you to kill in front of me.
Because that pushes you to be better, right?
Yeah, man, it brings me to such a new level. I'm so, man, keep it going for Dennis. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
man,
it pushes you. Yeah,
road.
sure.
We're driving, we're doing this and that. It's a funny story of Sammy Davis Jr. So Sammy Davis Jr. had all different openers over the years. And this is how Sammy Davis would do it. He would say, keep, and I'm not going to do his impression. He's like, keep it going for, Dennis. He goes, oh, it's great. We were here in, we're here in Laughlin, and we drove up to Lake Mead yesterday. Have you been to Lake Mead? He goes, oh, it was great. He goes, we went water skiing. It was my first time water skiing. Dennis, he's not that skinny of a guy. He goes, and I'm doing it. He goes, and, he keeps sinking, and I'm staying above, and we're doing this. So he'll tell a story for 10 to 15 minutes about the opener every day. That's a complete lie.
Well, okay, yeah.
And that was the most amazing thing. I was like, when I saw that thing with Sammy Davis, I was like, oh my God. So anytime I would have an opener, I would, of course I'd have an opener, but if I had different ones or something, I'd always try to make up a little story.
Make up a fake story.
and just this funny improvisational story, and the comics wouldn't know.
You mentioned you were on The Sopranos. Do you know Frank Santarelli from The Sopranos?
Yeah.
Yeah, I opened for him one time, and he did that to me. He's talking. I'm like, what is this guy talking? I didn't do any of this shit. But and then I figured out, all right, it's part of his act. He's just making fun of me. I get it now. Yeah.
Frank's a jerk off. I don't like Frank Santarelli.
Yeah, I had a run-in with him too, but that's the business.
comedy tour called the Brooklyn Comedy Tour. It was me, Tommy Savitt, Frank Santarelli, and we were going and doing shows and stuff. And I just realized he's a jerk off.
Yeah,
So
I had a problem with him too, so I can understand what you're saying.
Oh no, dude! Let me tell you, when he booked The Sopranos, he got such a big head that every comic in the business hated him.
Yeah.
And so then they hated him so much on The Sopranos, they hated him. That's why they would beat him up, and they would write things like with what's called beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, he got his ass kicked every episode he was on. I remember that. Yeah.
They hated him, and they were purposely writing these things. He had to get a tattoo, which took several fucking hours.
Yeah.
Like maybe it could have took 4 hours. I remember him telling me it took him 4 hours to get it done. Yeah, he's a jerk off. I got no respect for Frank Santarelli.
Well, he ended up in Boston. We got him out here. So.
No, I know. He's from he's not like many of the Boston guys.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime I talk to him, it's funny. I mean, and I know all those guys. Do you know the New Hampshire, like Steve Cowett, Gary Cowett? Do you know those guys?
I know Rob Steen up there. He's the big booker up in New Hampshire. There is all the guys through his rooms up there.
Yeah, Rob Steen was a buddy of mine. I used to do his shows many, many years ago.
Yeah, Rob's a good guy. I like Rob.
Yeah, he messaged me to come and do his shows. I think it was about a year ago or so. Hey, if you're on the East Coast, I'd love to have you up here. And I know he's doing great. He really became a comedian booker.
Oh yeah, he's like you. He's one of the hardest working guys in the business around here. He definitely outwork. But that's what it takes to get ahead, is outworking everybody. But
yeah, you know what it is. So let's say there's two different things, Dennis. So there's the guy who works hard, and then there's a guy who has a great agent. So let's say you watch. A perfect example is watching the roast, right? So you're like, oh, who the fuck is this doing the roast? And then you realize, oh, Jeffrey Ross saw them somewhere, and maybe they're a girl, most likely they're a girl, and now they're going to be on the roast, and they're funny. So let's say Nikki Glazer, who did Last Comic Standing, and she was funny. She's gotten really funny.
Right.
But at first, she was good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what you see. So then you got a guy who's a phenomenal comic. Brian Kiley, head writer of Conan.
Yeah.
So he's from Boston. He's a good buddy. I did my podcast. Great guy. Just an amazing writer, everything. But he's not a national headliner. He never got to that status. He stayed at the, headliner, but he'll feature as well. Like, he'll come, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But then you got guys that are just, you can't, like John Panette. He was one of my favorites. John Panette was from Boston. He moved very fast. It was so hard to follow John Panette.
Right.
So comics were like, also ventriloquist. So if a guy's a halfway decent ventriloquist, you got to make him the headliner.
You don't want to go on after that, yeah, right. You can't follow it.
Nobody wants to follow the guy with a guitar.
Yeah, well, they said that about Sam Kinison. He sucked the life out of the room. Nobody go on after him. There was no energy left in the room once the guy got done,
He would just destroy
the room,
Sam
yeah.
Kinison. Yeah, so, and that's the thing. It's, and I meet all these guys that, there's a thing called the Outlaws of Comedy, which was, actually, I had this writer's room, and I had a girl that was good friends with all those guys. She's from Texas. She's like a millionaire now.
Right.
She doesn't even do comedy anymore. Well, she kind of is coming back. But
Carl LeBeau, one of my friends there. I opened for Carl up in Alaska one time. Yeah, Cooch Comedy Club up there. I opened for him. That was
Oh yeah, Coots. Yeah, I headlined that many times.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there was the Comedy Shed up there in Anchorage.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, yeah. No, I know the
Fun
whole
time
thing.
up there, yeah.
But I don't know Carl LeBeau, but I know who he is. But he's one of the guys. So there was, Bill Hicks and then the guys.
The
right?
legends, yeah.
But that was the thing. Sometimes he had some amazing guys that were touring with him, but he was a rock star. Sam Kinison, and that was the thing about a Dane Cook. He became a rock star,
Yeah, right.
not
right.
just a comedian. So, like, when you're performing and you've got people in front of you, to the side and behind you, like at the Garden, like Sebastian Maniscalco has now hit rock star status.
You're doing arenas now, not comedy clubs anymore. That's rock star status right there,
yeah. Yeah, like me and Sebastian were making the same money in clubs, and then all of a sudden they booked them. I think it was at Governor's Comedy Club or something in Long Island, and then they were like, "Man, you sold out all the shows in advance." And they were like, "We're going to add more shows." And I think he went from making like, $2,500 to $5,000 for the weekend to making over $100,000 for the weekend in a comedy club.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Holy shit.
Something's happening here, right?"
This is happening.
Yeah.
And my friend, John Asher, his dad created Bewitched, and used to direct, I think, some I Love Lucy's. He directed 2 of his specials.
Really?
And he said to me, he goes, "Yeah," because he was actually going to direct my special. I actually decided not to do a special because I felt like Netflix was just like doing so many specials, and I was like,
Now, do you think that's good Netflix is taking over? Because, I mean, it used to be you want to get on Comedy Central, and everything's going, Netflix is getting all the big names, they're paying the big bucks. Do you think the internet's a good thing for comedy or a bad thing?
So, it's a great question. I believe that, so you're performing. So let's say I've never seen you perform. We're doing a show and you open for me. And I say, "Oh man, you like," I go, "You're a fan of Emo Phillips, or you're a fan of Dane Cook, or you're a fan of Chris Rock," because I can see that you're stealing their mannerisms.
Right.
I can see the way you're writing your jokes. You've completely been a student of the game and watched YouTube, right?
Right.
And now you can learn the voice and the sing-song of the delivery of a joke, which before you really couldn't do that.
Right,
but you could do it by buying a comedy special or, buying a DVD or
going to the
Blockbuster.
clubs. Yeah.
But now you could just go black comedians and a million things come up on
at
YouTube.
your fingertips, yeah.
And then you say, over the years, AOL, all that stuff, instant chat messenger, whatever, a comic would hit me up out of the blue. "Hey, hi, I'm Mike, I'm a comedian." I say, "Oh, hey," and I'd message back or whatever, be cool. Yeah. It'd be like the instant message. And I say, we're talking. You say, I'm a fan of yours. And I said, "Oh, great. And thanks. I was looking at your stuff, and and they say, I'd really like if you could help me with my stuff." And sometimes I was like nice, and I'd help. And I'm usually nice. Yeah. I'm known to be very generous.
It's a responsibility. You got to give back to the next generation. It's kind of a responsibility to be nice and give back to the next generation. Yeah.
Exactly. And so this is every time. This is not one time. This is every fucking time. I would help, and then I would say, so let's talk about that one bit. I go, "I think you should." "Oh, I don't really want to talk about that. You might steal it." And I would go, "Why would you came to me. Why would I say,
Yeah.
like, well, I heard the comics. So then I'd literally be like, well, then why did you reach out to me? Well, no, I just wanted to, and then end up
I
being
know
like,
exactly
and
what
I'd be
you're
like,
saying.
go
Yeah.
fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be like,
These young kids don't get it. I've had young kids reach out to me. You try to help them, then they end up burning you. It's like, yeah, that's what I get for helping you out, man. What the fuck, you know? Like,
I live my life, and anyone that knows me, I live my life like the mafia. If you're good to me, you're a good earner. I'm gonna keep feeding you. You fuck me.
Yeah.
You fuck me, I'm gonna fucking
Well, that's the generation we grew up in. That's, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. You take care of me, I take care of you, But
exactly.
I guess they call them millennials. The young kids, they don't get, that's not how they're brought up. They don't get it anymore,
Well, think of it this way, right? Chris D'Elia, his dad is a huge producer in Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
You know who Chris D'Elia is, right?
Yeah.
So his dad's a huge producer, Bill D'Elia, who I think did Private Practice or West Wing or whatever. All those, you can look them up. And he was handed the keys to the kingdom if he was funny, right? So Chris became a really funny comic and a great actor. It all was good, and then now his career might be ruined because of what he did. You read about all that stuff.
Yeah. You don't
so
bite the hand that feeds you, I mean.
Exactly. And then you got Brian Callen, who's a friend of mine, who's a great comic and actor. And he was just on a hit series, School, that it got canceled. But it was a spin-off of the Goldbergs. So now, D'Elia pretty much disappeared. He's not really on Instagram, Twitter, whatever's going on. He's not really there. Brian's still up there, still saying things, even though he was accused of some bad stuff. So during COVID has opened the world up to, we're bored. Let's see what Bill Cosby's doing. Ron Jeremy. I mean, rape is awful. I hate rapists more
if
than
it's
anything.
true, allegedly, we gotta say allegedly.
Right? So now you have all these rape accusations. So if COVID didn't come, people would have kind of been living their life, and they wouldn't have been just sitting on the computer. I mean, you can Google.
I gotta say, I partied with Ron Jeremy for a weekend in Vegas, and girls just throw themselves at this guy, okay? So I don't know why he's got to rape anybody. He's got pussy at hand if he wants it, so I don't know. I mean, I gotta defend the guy on that one a little bit, but we'll see what happens. I don't know,
So I just did a movie called The Pandering, where I'm the star of it, and it's like a horror comedy, and one of the girls I beat up and bloody and all this shit. She plays a hooker. She's a porn star, and she's a good friend of mine. She actually has a guest star in my series, Not for Nothing. And she tells me, she's like, man, as soon as the Ron Jeremy thing, she's like, it finally came out. You know what I mean? Like, that's about all she said. She's like, I go, what do you mean? She goes, for years, Jimmy. It's just awful.
Well, he's using the Harvey Weinstein defense, and that didn't work out too good for Harvey Weinstein, so I don't know if...
Oh, I mean, Harvey Weinstein, just awful.
Yeah, that was a dirtbag, man.
But the thing is, so I think me being married for so many years, and my mom and dad were together 54 years, it instills in me like, hey, family first, let me focus, let me not get caught up in the, because when I was younger, I was a whore, and I fooled around with so many different girls. I'm a handsome young model. And now, knowing, and it's not that, girls, they constantly...
Well, you were brought up old school, that's why. I mean, it's old school, that's the way you are.
Yeah, so you just have to be smart in this business. The whole YouTube generation of millennials I think it's ruined comedy.
Really?
But it's also it's also helped find the diamonds in the rough.
Well, the industry's not liking it because you can be an internet star now and you don't have to go through the industry, and the industry don't like it. They're losing money on it, so it's...
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember I was headlining an improv in Florida, and, and I hadn't sold out the whole weekend, but I'd sold out most of the shows, and the other ones were like half full or something like that. And I said, man, how do you get a draw here? It's like, I'm Italian, I'm Florida, I should be selling out. And this was many years ago. And they're like, oh, we just had this guy, I think his name was Adam Caro or something. And they go, oh, man, they go, he fucking sold out every show. They go, he did Monday through Sunday. It's like he did shows every day, 2 shows a day. And I go, who's he? He goes, oh, he's a comic. And I go, is he a comic or is he a YouTube sensation? They go, oh, yeah, he's got a lot of YouTube followers. And I was like, okay, so he's a YouTube sensation. So,
which isn't a bad thing. I mean,
yeah, so then I went to go see him do stand-up, and he was a fucking awful.
Really?
Like, he came to L.A., and he was awful.
Well, you ever drive through Vegas and you see the big billboards, and they'll say under whatever act so many YouTube hits? That's a big advertisement thing out there, how many hits you get on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. It's completely, it's completely on your resume of... It's a TV credit.
Right.
A YouTube hit.
A viral video, funny. Yeah.
I'll look at guys. I'll watch guys on TV, with these different credits and stuff. And like, let's say you do, like, if you do Conan now or Jimmy Fallon. I mean,
it's a nice credit, but it's not like back in the day when you were a made comic the second you did it, right?
No, it is nothing now. It's really nothing. Almost every comedian that has gotten half-hour specials that I know, that are my friends, and most are, that's why I became the famous nobody, most of these guys are doing these shows and doing a half-hour special, and then I'm watching it on a Friday, like Comedy Central Presents, and being excited. And then less than 6 months later, because it does not make them a draw, so they're going and they're doing the Improv, Funny Bones, whatever, and they're a Saturday night, and they got, place holds 400 or 280, and they've got 18 people on a Saturday night. 32 people.
Yeah, right, right.
And then they're calling me to come and open for me. 6 months later, hey, man, hey, dude, if you got any feature work, man, I'll take it.
I'll take the work, right?
And I'm going, I don't have a half-hour special on Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Because that's where it got ruined. That's where Comedy Central said, well, we don't give a shit about funny as much as we give a shit about you might be the next big thing because you're young and you're cute or you're fucking goofy looking.
Well, I posed the question, I'll ask you in question. I asked this question to a bunch of Boston comics. If you had the choice, would you rather be on the Tonight Show or the Joe Rogan podcast? And I was surprised by the answer I got. But, well, which one would you go for?
So...
most are saying the Joe Rogan podcast is going to get you work. It's going to get you young kids butts in the seats for Comedy Club, where... the Tonight Show, it's a nice one to show mom, but it's not like the old days where it's going to pack the seats anymore,
Exactly. Now, I don't really know Rogan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's a Boston guy too, Rogan. He started out around here.
No. I know. I mean, I know exactly who he is.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know him.
Personally,
like, we're not buddies. If we were buddies, I'd contact him and like, hey, I want to do the show, something like that. But to me, it's kind of weird. I'd rather have the TV taping of a Tonight Show.
Yeah, your heart would tell you the Tonight Show, right?
Huh?
Your heart would tell you do the Tonight Show because that's the big one everybody wants to be on from our generation. But your brain might tell you,
Well, I used to play. Here's a perfect example. I used to play poker with Eddie Brill every week. okay, when I lived in New York City. You know Eddie Brill, he's like
David Letterman show.
yeah, and of course, Boston,
Boston
Brooklyn,
ties, right?
legend, right? So I used to play poker with him every week, and he would call and he'd say to me, "Hey, man," he's like, "Hey, Jimmy, I saw this guy the other day." He goes, "Why don't you, me and you?" He's like, "I'll take you out to dinner." He goes, "And then we'll go follow this guy around to the clubs." He goes, "I'm thinking about bringing this guy."
Oh, you're still there.
Wait a second.
Technical difficulties going on. I can steer. He's still fumbling with the phone.
Yeah, okay.
He's back. All right.
I'm going to say it back so if you need to edit it. So I used to play poker with Eddie Brill, who's, David Letterman.
Right.
And everything was great. He was a booker for Letterman, and we played poker every week. And he would call me up and say, "Hey, Jimmy, I saw this guy the other day. You know what? I'll buy you dinner. We'll get sushi." He was like the first guy that ever gave me sushi, actually. And he's like, "I'll buy you sushi, and then we'll run around town and we'll follow the guy." Because I'm thinking about putting him on Letterman. Now, after I did this several times with him, I said to him, "What about me for Letterman?" He goes, "You're not right for Letterman." He goes, "You're like Conan or, it's like I don't think I'm right for Colbert.
Younger generation, right?
But I'm maybe right for Conan or, these different, anyways, the point is, he would see guys. So then I saw a comic that killed on Letterman. And I was like, man, he was really good. And Eddie'd go, he goes, "Yeah, he was good." He goes, "Yeah, Dave didn't like him, so we're not going to bring him back." And I go, "But he killed. He murdered. He was so good."
Politics.
He goes, "Yeah, but Dave didn't like him." And that was it.
All right.
So I said, "Wow, what politics."
Welcome to the business.
Who gives a fuck if David Letterman likes him?
Yeah, well, he did that to Bill Hicks. I mean, legendary comedian Bill Hicks didn't play his set till after he died.
I'm not 100% sure if Robert Schimmel ever did Letterman, but Robert Schimmel was amazing. And he was Eddie Brill's best friend. So, I think I'm right by saying this. Robert Schimmel did not do Letterman, but I think he would do Conan and he would do the Tonight Show, but he just didn't do Letterman.
Right.
I think that Letterman was like, I could be saying this wrong, but I'm pretty sure he did not do it. And if you ever saw Robert Schimmel, he was one of the best.
Oh, yeah, I think I got a cassette tape of his still somewhere around here.
I mean, one of the best.
He was around forever, yeah.
So, there's, and my other good friend is Rick Overton, who's a legend. He's acted. You can look him up. He's got hundreds of credits and one of the first TV spots and stand-up and just everything. Just an amazing comic.
Not at all.
But Rick Overton is a guy who is going to get booked in the theater. He's one of, Robin Williams' best friends. I mean, it's just everything. One of the best improvisers in the world. I mean, Rick's just a legend. And Rick is not going to sell out an improv. But if you book him, he's going to kill. Those people are going to love him.
Yeah, if you got the built-in crowd, right, yeah, but he's not a draw.
He's not going to sell out an improv.
Right.
Meanwhile, some comic that might be doing it 5 years, 8 years, that got a Comedy Central special, or, I've been really following these Netflix specials,
yeah.
And let's say, I think a lot of them are good now that are coming out, but the ones that came out in the last few years were awful, and it was just saturated.
Too many, yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm like, 2 out of 20 are good. And,
well, Comedy Central was the same with the half-hour Comedy Central. Some of them killed, and some of them you're like, yeah, all right, so.
That's another thing. My buddy Kurt Metzger, who did White Precious, and he was like the head writer for Amy Schumer show. his Comedy Central special is like an hour. It's great. And here's a guy who should be going on the road, playing theaters and clubs and kicking ass, but just it's like a lottery. It's like a draw. It's just, I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason how fans are going to come out and go, oh, there's tickets to Dennis at let's get them at the Comedy Connection.
It's the younger generation now that's coming out, you know, like the Conan, he appeals to the younger generation, where, you know, Joe Rogan, he appeals to the younger generation. That's what's going to sell you tickets and stuff like that, where, you know, the Tonight Show, that's the older generation, that's their TV show, so.
You know, and his thing is, you know, Rogan, what's he do, 2-3 hour podcasts.
Yeah.
You know, so I've never, ever sat and listened to his whole podcast. Ever. You know what I mean?
I think he's got the stoner crowd. Everybody gets stoned and listens to his podcast, so you got a bunch of stoners showing up to these shows for them, but that's why they stay, they're too stoned to tuned out is what's going on.
You know, and that's what happens, man. It's just about knowing what you're gonna do, like, where is the funny like a clown. Like, if I'm coming to Boston and you got a big draw, I'm gonna do your podcast because we're gonna be like, look, you know, let's do the Italian show, funny like a clown. How the fuck am I funny? You know, like,
I wear big shoes.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny because I wrote this joke the other day about my friend created the TV show Cobra Kai, and I said, so I'm watching Cobra Kai. It's like the #1 show.
Yeah, one of the hottest shows on Netflix right now. Yeah.
So I'm watching, you know, on Netflix, and my buddy John Hurwitz created it. So I contact John about it, and then I start joking, and I said, yeah, you know, what about, I said, Mr. Miyagi's dead. Instead of showing flashbacks, why don't you get somebody that worked with Nacho who would be great? Like, let's say Joe Pesci, my cousin Vinny. Right. He's like, wax on, you motherfucker! You know, like, so the whole bit I'd written about all the things about Miyagi. But
that is a good series. I binge watched it. I do enjoy the series, yeah.
Well, you know, so we didn't touch upon one of my side hustles, which is poker. Like, I'm a professional poker player. Your fans can Google me, and just pages and pages of me at celebrity poker tournaments come up.
Really?
You know, and so I was playing poker at the Borgata Casino in Atlantic City. I was headlining it, and that night I was playing, and I played for about 12 hours, and breaking balls with everybody and having a good time. And then this guy goes, hey, you're a comedian. He goes, I should introduce you to my son. He's a TV creator. And I said, oh, really? Who? And he says his name. I go, yeah, I've heard the name, but I don't really know. And he goes, yeah. He goes, oh, he created Harold and Kumar. And I was like, oh, really? So then he, like, messaged his son right there, and his son got back to me, and we became friends, like, through the internet. We never actually met, right. But we talked, and we were talking about, like, they just got picked up for a 4th season, so I possibly might be in Cobra Kai, the 4th season. Well,
that'd be great credit. Well, we talked about how you got started. We talked about what you've done, but other than Cobra Kai, what's in the future for you? What do you hope to accomplish? What are you struggling to do?
So we got Single Broke Dad. I'd like to, after all this is done and the world's different, which I think could be 2 to 5 years, I'll shoot a new comedy special, which will just be uncensored, me doing whatever. Probably be an hour and 15 minutes to 90 minutes is what I'd like to do. I've had so many offers to shoot specials, so many people to produce them. Mm-hmm. You know, and they've got deal with Amazon or Netflix or whatever, because there's the distribution of, like, and then just trying to you know, I'm 48 years old. I'll be 49 in December, And I always think, hey, would I retire in my late 50s or 60s or before COVID? I said to myself, I could be on I could perform on ships until I'm 70 something.
Oh, but is there something you want to do before you hit retirement? Is there something you dream of accomplishing, or?
Oh well, yeah, I'd like to win a World Series a poker bracelet.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big poker. I'm well known in the poker world.
Yeah, I head down to Foxwoods every now and then. I play every. I mean, since COVID, I ain't been down, but I'll hit Foxwoods every now and hit the poker room. Yeah.
Well, I used to play at Foxwoods. This is many, many, many years ago. I come in from Brooklyn.
When it was upstairs, it's downstairs now. They used to have it upstairs.
Oh, it was downstairs in the dungeon.
They started downstairs, moved it upstairs, and they went back down again. Yeah.
Yeah. So I played 1-3 stud back then. 1-3-3-6 stud.
Yeah.
Back then. Then to like high-low, 8 or better for stud, and then I started playing Hold'em and Omaha, and then I pretty much mastered Hold'em and Omaha in Atlantic City at Trump Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
And then I started winning so much money because I was playing $25, $50. So you could 25, 50, raise 50, 50.
Right, yeah.
It could get really expensive. And I was a young kid. I was a poker pro at like 18 years old. So 17, 18 years old is when I really.
So that was before it hit big, or was it right when it hit big?
No. I'm 48.
Right.
No, poker did not hit. I was on the World Poker Tour. You can see it on IMDb. I was on the first season of the World Poker Tour.
Oh, okay, so you were in the early years before it had its big, it went ballistic, right?
Well, that was the first year of the season. It was the first season they did.
Right.
And so I, for years, I mean, the major poker guys were like, I should just quit. Like, I just did a TV show called Celebrity Poker Gala with Phil Hellmuth, so we just taped it in January. In fact, we just taped it, and he said to me, he goes, "Man," he goes, "You're a great comedian." He goes, "But you're a great poker player."
Phil's one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, is he a good guy in real life, or I mean, you said you know him?
You know what, dude? He's so cool in real life.
Really? He comes off kind of a prick on TV, but I don't know.
He's a baby.
Yeah.
But my wife was gonna go work for his company when we moved to LA, and I didn't know Phil, but I only knew him from TV, and I was like, this guy's a jerko.
Yeah.
So my first time I ever met him was just in January when we played.
Yeah.
I never met him. I mean, when I see guys whining at the table like that, I don't even want to talk to you.
Yeah, I hung out with Daniel Negreanu out in Vegas. He was one cool cat. He was the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet in your life, Daniel.
Well, Daniel Negreanu's my favorite player.
Really?
I'm a huge limit LIMIT, not no limit,
right.
Poker player. I bet 100, 200. I play. Minimum I'll play is 20-40, and that's Daniel Negreanu's pretty much his favorite game. I think he's the best.
He's always smiling. He just got a great attitude. Just he's a pleasure to be around. One of those guys you like to be around him.
I'm really good at reading. I don't even know Negreanu. I never even met Negreanu.
Right.
But I am really good at reading cards, and literally just like Negreanu, and saying, hey, you got this, and people are like blown away.
Yeah, all right. You can see through somebody.
Yeah, no, so that's a thing. I actually have written a sitcom that as you said, a dream or a passion project called Low Rollers, about a pro poker player. So, and who has to run a casino. So who knows? It's I'd like to, but he's like a degenerate.
Right.
But it's just like I'm trying to, just this COVID thing, man. I mean, I did a lot of research on COVID, and I think
not much you can do if you wanted to.
We're not going to be back to normal until the end of next year.
No time soon, for sure.
They're going to have a vaccine. Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean
Yeah, that's not going to cure
Are you
it,
going to
right?
take the vaccine?
You know, I need to learn more about it. I'll wait till it comes out, see what they got to say. I mean, I do take the flu shot. I get deathly sick if I don't. So, I mean, at my age, you know, I'm 50. So, I mean, something's going to catch up with me eventually anyway. If it's the vaccine, so be it. But, I mean, if I was a young guy, I might not want to. I got a lot of life left. I probably wouldn't want to take it. I don't know. What about you? Are you going to take it or no?
Yeah, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
We're going to take it, but I'm not going to be the first in line to take it. You know, I'm not going to be a guinea pig.
Right.
They're supposed to come out with it in November, the end of November. They're supposed to have the vaccine, and I think it's for medical workers.
Right. The
So
frontline workers,
one, like,
yeah.
for us.
Yeah, if they're on the front line, yeah, they need it first, obviously,
March,
right.
until March or some shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know, man. It's just a world. But,
Crazy world, and we're all living in it, right?
That's it, buddy.
All right, well, we talked about how you started, what you're doing, where you're going. I guess we've been talking for about an hour and a half, so why don't we leave it up on this? We talked earlier about how it's a responsibility to give back to the younger comics, the younger generation. So if you had some advice for the young comics, we get a lot of young comics who tune in this podcast. I mean, what was your method for success? I mean, if there was a young comic sitting next to you saying, Jimmy, I need some advice, give me some advice, what would you tell them? Tell the listeners on the podcast.
Here's a perfect example. My buddy was, his name's Steve Schaefer, great comic out of Philly. He was roommates with Jerry Seinfeld. And he had a big calendar, big, humongous, on the wall. And he says to Jerry, he goes, Jerry, there's X's on every date. What's that about? And he goes, and then Steve goes, those are gigs? He goes, I had more gigs than you last month. He goes, those aren't gigs. He goes, that's where I wrote for 6 to 8 hours with Larry Miller. And he said every single date had a cross on it.
Wow, that's a lot of hours.
6 to 8 hours. So my best friend Tim Homian, who stars with me and created Not For Nothing, he's also in a cross-up. He just has a little part in a cross-up. Me and him used to go to the same deli, I think it was called the Green Kitchen, in New York City on the Upper East Side. And that's where Seinfeld and Larry Miller used to write for 6 to 8 hours. And that's where we used to write. That's where me and Tim would write every night after our shows for like a couple hours or whatever. And it was, so the young comics, write every day. Stay focused. Don't steal material. If someone says they have a joke similar to yours, respect it. Respect it and say, you know what? I'm better than that. I can write another joke. Mm-hmm. One of the things that Chris Rock's always said, first person to get into TV, it's theirs. Well, no, that's not true, because comics, so let's say you young comics come to see me, or you come to see a different comic or whatever, and then you steal their joke, and then you go do an open mic, and then you're kicking ass because someone never seen me on Netflix. They don't watch Netflix, or whatever it is. You steal the joke, and then that comic works, they do the joke for a couple of years, and people are like, oh, he's funny, and now this kid's working, and he's a thief.
Right.
A true story about a comic was a guy opened for me, a comic. He was a young Russian comedian. He was about to do Letterman, and he opened for me in, what's the culinary school in Rhode Island? The famous, whatever. So it was a college. And he's open for me, and he kills. He does like 35 minutes, and I got to do an hour. And he gets off stage, and I said, that's good, And then the guy announces me, I go up. And I talk to him after, and I'm like, man, you had some really good stuff. And he's like, yeah, man, I work really hard. I write every day, and blah, blah, blah. Well, he was a fucking liar. He wasn't writing. He was stealing. He would drive to like other states, steal comics material, come back to Boston, and do it. So then he takes all the jokes from Boston, from the Godfathers, of those major guys, Don Gavin, all those comedians, and then he goes to move to LA. So he becomes a top comic in LA. He's ready to do Letterman, and he goes to the Comedy Connection in Faneuil Hall one night, and all the main guys are waiting in the green room, and they lock the door, and they slap the shit out of him.
They don't catch up with you, yeah, oh yeah.
And they also threatened Eddie Brill, said if you put him on Letterman, we're going to beat the shit out of you.
Yeah. It's been going on in comedy for years. That's the problem. And people think they can get away because it's been going on for so long. I'm with you. It's a piece of shit thing to do, but it's been going on forever. I was seeing a kid, he actually had a book, and he was writing in the book, like, what jokes a comic told on what night, so he knew if he played that room not to do those jokes in that room. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, kid, you know?
There's integrity. Comedy is integrity. Listen, and young comics say, listen, I'm not telling you that if you steal, you're not going to work, because you could work, but it will catch up with you. There's comedy karma.
Like I say, Robin Williams was known to be a notorious joke thief, and he got his ass kicked, I heard, at the Comedy Store a few times, but he went on to make it, so.
Yeah, so that's, you know what I mean? And listen, Martin Lawrence stole. There's a ton of comics that stole, that made it. Carlos Mencia, right?
Yeah.
Man, I was a fan. The guy could tell jokes, man. He could deliver a joke and destroy, get a standing ovation every time. As a stand-up comedian, that's a big deal. And sure enough, Rogan recorded that whole thing and whatever. And now he's called Carlos Mencia.
Right.
But, you know, if you really look into it, yeah, he might have stole from people. There's a lot of comics that over the years had stolen and then they stopped. It's all about finding your voice. And what I'd like to tell the young comics is don't try to move too fast. And do not take a gig that you're not ready for. If you're an opener and someone goes, hey, can you do an hour? And you go, yeah, I guess I'll do crowd work. Don't think
No.
you can do a fucking hour.
Yeah.
Unless it's like at your cousin's fucking birthday party or something.
I've seen a kid fall. It's like he gets a half-hour gig and he only had 15. I'm like, well, why would you tell him you had a half hour? Well, I wanted the gig. All right, well, you got the gig and now you won't work again because you fucked it up. So what good did that do you?
Comedy is like sex. You want to return, right? You want to bang a girl. You want to return engagement, just like comedy. So you do it good.
Better
you
do it
it
good.
bad, you're not going to get the return.
Right. It's good advice.
Yeah, that's it, buddy. So
Well,
thanks so much, Dennis, and you guys good luck, and go to my website, funnyjimmy.com. You can find anything you need on me, and you can Facebook, social media, whatever, say you heard me on the podcast, and watch my show. And on Prime, Not For Nothing, watch my new comedy special, Famous Nobody, on Dry Bar, and be on the lookout for much more stuff.
Thank you so much for being on. JimmyDellaValle.com. Got links to all his Amazon Prime stuff, anything you want to know about him. Check this guy out, one of the hardest working guys in comedy. I said it at the top, I'll say it again. Congratulations on your success, and I wish you more success in the future, Jimmy.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Jimmy Della Valle. Check him out, man. And he's doing stuff in comedy, big stuff, working hard. And, you know, for the young comics that tune in this show, man, a lot of them, you want to follow in this guy's footsteps, you know, use his formula for success. You got to outwork everybody. You got to stay true to yourself. 8 to 6 hours writing every day. You know, don't steal other people's material. Don't take a gig until you're ready. These are all good advice, you know, and this is all stuff worth checking out. He's at the top of his game. He's out there in L.A., and if you're in L.A., you're only in with the best of the best, and he's making his bones. He's a paid comic in with the best of the best. This is Funny Like a Clown podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth. Thank you again for tuning in. Keep laughing. Tell somebody a joke, because laughter is the best medicine. Make somebody laugh. Tell a joke at work tomorrow, and they're going to take that joke. They're going to tell it to somebody else, and, you know, making the world a better place. Chain of laughter. Good night, folks.